Damn, that's a banger. Hey there, everybody, and welcome back behind enemy lines. Hey there, how you doing, America? Gene Berardelli, Ross Galloway here. Bro, how you doing today?
What's going on, Inspector?
Let me tell you, I feel like I've had 3 weeks worth of work in the space of 3 days. I haven't been able to post videos because I'm basically alone in the office this week. One associate, the other associate that's in my office with me has been in the hospital dealing with a very serious situation, and thank God he's doing well now. And my boss has been in Florida, out of state, so I'm the only person in the office, and rushing home, doing all the stuff at the office, covering for everybody. It's a bit. It's a bit of
So,
stuff to do.
so if I hear what you're saying, this isn't the only one-man show here. You got multiple one-man shows going on in your life.
It's plate spinning, bro. I am plate
Oh,
spinning. When one starts to get a little off kilter, I gotta run to it and shake the stick, and then go back to the other one. It's been. I'm old. I'm tired, and that's all I can think about now, except for doing this show, which is really the highlight of my week. So I'm glad everybody is tuned in behind enemy lines. I don't want to talk about bad stuff. One good thing did happen this week for me, and we'll get the BS out of the way first. So my nephew who lives in the house, Marcos, he's basically taken over the basement. We created like a little teen space for him that included a projection television. Well, before Christmas, that projection television started not working, so we tried to get a new one for him. And it turns out the one we got wasn't exactly so great to use. So we ended up finding a third one, which was really, really inexpensive, and it works just as well as the original one, and it's really great. So now we have a spare projector. I think I'm living out every 80s kid's dream because I now have that projector TV pointed at the ceiling. So every night before I go to bed, if I want to watch TV, want to watch YouTube or whatever else is going on, I can throw it up on the ceiling and just lay back and just look. And it just feels like, yeah, this is what I thought the 21st century would look like.
I gotta be honest, that's not a terrible idea. Like when I'm falling asleep, I fall asleep with my phone in my hand, like trying to watch a YouTube video. A projector on the ceiling, not a terrible idea, Mr. Berardelli.
It's not terrible. I find I get more sleep, even when like it goes into sleep mode. When it goes into sleep mode, it has like a digital clock on it, so I can even wake up and see, oh God, look what time it is, or if I'm late or whatever, I can set alarms on. It's great. I'm like I said, I'm living in the 21st century now. It's so cool.
Brilliant, love it.
Yeah, how's your week been?
So far, so good. All quiet on the southern front.
Well, that's good. I mean, the weather warm up.
It's beautiful.
Everybody got over the snow and everybody's good there.
50, 60 degrees where I'm at.
All right. Now you can go F yourself. Today wasn't so bad. It was in the 40s, but I had to travel on the train to go to court and then go back to the office. So
yeah, I got your wallet stolen.
Well, no, that didn't happen. That didn't. Wait. Did it? No, I'm good. But everything is a-okay. It's been a lot this week, but it's also been a lot in the world of political news, pal. And we have an overflow of things to talk about, both on local fronts and national fronts. So we're going to get into some stuff here that we talked about, some stuff we may not have talked about. But before we do all that, going to ask everybody, wherever you're watching, please subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other shows. And if you like what you see and hear in this or any other video on the channel, if you decide to peruse it or whatever, smash the thumbs up button. Especially on this video, that would help us get more viewers on here. If you smash that thumbs up button wherever you are, whether it's on X, whether it's on YouTube or Rumble. We appreciate all the support we can get because we're a little channel here and we need all the help we can get. So, pal, have you seen this thing going on in the Chicago suburbs where this mayor, Tiffany Henyard, for the past couple of years has been really walking that fine line between tyrant and criminal? Have you seen this?
I saw something about this. I just saw like a fight break out on TV. I missed the story, but it turned out like it sounded like her boyfriend was beating someone up in the crowd. Am I getting this right?
You're definitely getting that right, and it has to do a lot to do with the intermingling between her personal life and her professional life and all this. If you guys need a refresher on what's going on in Dolton, Illinois, and Thornton Township, which is outside of the Chicagoland area there, I suggest going to Nate the Lawyer's channel. He has a whole playlist of this stuff. It's been going on for years. We tried to cover it on here, but it's just too much stuff. We can't devote everything to Dolton, Illinois. But the past couple of days, there's been a lot of news coming out of there. The first bit of news is that this woman, Tiffany Henyard, she's the mayor of Dolton, Illinois. She's the supervisor of Thornton Township, holds both jobs at the same time. There's been a lot of questions over the past year and a half about different expenses that she's put onto the township and how she runs the government in both the township and the village. So, these little municipalities, they overlap a lot. There's a lot of different things. But apparently the spending has been so out of control that when she took over the township and the village, there was a surplus in the village. And then within a year, the village was in a $5 million deficit. Now, this isn't a big area. This is like 40,000 people or so, Dolton, Illinois. And my God, to spend up that kind of bill was kind of ridiculous.
Bro, the funniest part of this story, other than the fist fight that broke out, was this mayor. Are you tracking who's investigating her and who just released a report on this corruption?
Oh, we have. Listen, I have all the clips. Let's get into it right now. The first, there's three big pieces of news that happened recently. The first one being that Tiffany Henyard, the supervisor of Dolton, she's not going to be on the ballot to run for re-election for the supervisor position in Dolton, Illinois. Instead, it's going to be former NFL player turned state senator Napoleon Harris. I actually remember him playing, I think it was for the Minnesota Vikings. But that's neither here nor there. This would represent a doubling in salary for the state senator, going from somewhere around 100,000 or so to 200,000 for a township. First of all, that's cuckoo bananas in of itself. But when you get to what happened with this election, we know a little something about inside baseball when it comes to nominations and committee hearings and caucuses. Napoleon Harris called for a caucus in the area and basically didn't give Henyard the memo about the caucus. And the caucus, those present, voted for him to be the nominee. Henyard took him to jail, and, well, you'll see now how it all came out in the wash. Let's check this out from NBC Chicago.
Development in the saga of embattled Thornton Township Supervisor Tiffany Henyard. A judge has dismissed her lawsuit, claiming that a caucus that threw her off the ballot was illegal. NBC5's Regina Waldrop has been following this case very closely for a very long time. She joins us now with details. Regina.
Marion, it is official. Tiffany Henyard is off the ballot for Thornton Township Supervisor, a role she was appointed to in 2022. Now, today, a Cook County judge ruled she didn't file her lawsuit properly, and he dismissed it without prejudice, meaning she cannot refile. So I want to take you back to the scene December 3rd. That is when Tiffany Henyard was thrown off the ballot. It was a packed and raucous meeting with an overflow crowd waiting outside. At that.
Now, Mr. Galloway, you and I have attended meetings like this. We've chaired meetings like this. Let's talk about some of the inside baseball of what happens in these county meetings, these township meetings, and all of that. The first thing I want to point out is that the House always wins. The rules of whatever the gathering is, they're written in favor of the committee at all times. And if you know how to write bylaws, or you know how to write these rules, you can basically squash any opposition that you may be facing, any sort of insurgency or anything like that. Talk a little bit about how these meetings are really, everything happens before the meeting.
Well, let's start with this. First of all, I don't know if we prefaced this right. Democrats, the guardians of democracy. That's this whole thing is all Democrat through and through. Everybody in that room. Let's
be clear. Let's be clear. This is a one-party system in this area, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And as a matter of fact, Lori Lightfoot, I think we're going to get to this later, she's the one, the mayor of Chicago, who lost her own bid for re-election in Chicago for being too incompetent, is the one investigating this small town mayor here. So getting back to the meeting, I've watched Gene, in a former life, chair some of these meetings. Right, I've done it much smaller scale.
You're going to call me a conniver and a shady character now. You're putting the sus on me?
but I was definitely one of your right hand henchmen. I think a blog used to call me
Thank
the
you.
enforcer
Thank
back in
you.
the day.
Thank you.
Yeah, so when you're involved in local politics like this, and I suspect, especially the DNC, but the RNC probably acts very similar, to be honest with you, because we were involved in local Republican politics. When you hold these types of meetings, or you can call it a caucus if you want, a convention, those who control the rules, those who control the notice, those who set the time, date, and manner in which the votes will be cast, and those who decide how a proxy vote can be cast or will be cast, or if it's valid or not, determine the outcome, right? It's not how many votes you get, it's who's going to count the votes. And when you're in control of the party apparatus, you basically pick the outcome. And put your legal hat on here for a second, Gene, because I could have sworn this happened to us a few times. Even if you're sued, like, the courts are hesitant to get involved in internal party squabbles, to sort it out. They leave it up to the rules committee or the law chairman of the party, really, right?
Well, as someone who acted as the law chairman of a party for several years, I can tell you that, yes, courts are loath to get involved in inter-party squabbles like this. But you're absolutely right in saying that not only are the rules set in favor of the committee, but the rules for counting votes is also set in favor, because, as you mentioned, if you have a law committee, they can make determinations about the validity of votes. It's almost like the Boss Tweed era of politics, in that he or she who counts the votes controls the votes. It's one of the reasons why I'm not involved in these inter-party squabbles anymore. It's just very, very icky. With that background in mind, let's continue through the clip.
At that time, Henyard called it unfair and illegal. She said none of her supporters were let in to cast a vote. Now, we spoke to elections expert attorney Bert Oldelson, who tells us the caucus was legal, and also a Thornton Township resident who says it might have been legal, but it might not have been ethical.
And that's where it gets into that gray area where lawyers love to live, by the way. And it's where we lived for a couple of years, pal, in People's Republic of New York City. Sorry, not sorry. If that's the way the game is played, then so be it. Gonna go back to the video now.
I think that they used some plays out of Tiffany Henyard's own playbook. They booked a venue that was too small to hold everyone who wanted to attend. They seated their own supporters early.
Were there, conducted the caucus, it was done legally. Even a properly filed objection wouldn't have stood. So she's done.
Tiffany Henyard's only option now is to be a write-in candidate in Thornton Township's April 1st election. Now, today's court ruling in no way impacts her role as Dolton mayor. She remains the Democratic nominee in that contest, but she also is facing a number of lawsuits and financial investigations. Next Monday evening, former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot will release her second report on financials at a public meeting at the Dolton Park District. And we've reached out to Tiffany Henyard's attorney, but we have yet to hear back.
And now
So that leads us to this video, pal, where we pick up with Lori Lightfoot, of all people, giving sort of like an independent counsel report about the workings in Dolton, Illinois. Let me just reiterate what happened in Dolton over the recent months. And this is by no means an exhaustive list. It's meant to be half of a summary, really. So there are questions about her credit card uses for trips to Vegas and to New York and to other places that were all billed to the township, extravagant meals and luxury hotels and all that. And then there was the battle between her position as Dolton mayor and the Board of Trustees, which is like their city council, concerning whether or not bills were being getting paid or not. She gave overtime to police officers who were favorable to her, to the point where they had like hundreds of hours of overtime in a pay period. It was ridiculous. They acted as her personal police. Henyard was also accused of shaking down businesses in Dolton, Illinois, and especially creating barriers to commerce for businesses that didn't support her, including inspections and violations and things of that nature. She started a nonprofit, and the question surrounding both Dolton and Thornton Township is what the hell is going on with all the money? Because in a lot of cases, Henyard was the only signatory involved. She violated rules that required dual signatures between her and the clerk. And they brought in, the Board of Trustees brought in Lori Lightfoot, because she's so trustworthy, to discuss her findings based upon the information she was given. Anything you want to add to that little bit of a summary there, pal?
Lori Lightfoot was so incompetent that she lost a mayoral primary in the city of Chicago. And there's some additional serious questions you left out. I have serious questions about that weave and those eyelashes. I don't know what's going on.
Give it time, bro. Give it time. I'm going to get to that in a moment. But for now, let's get to Lori Lightfoot, that bastion of integrity. The same woman who said that you can have BLM marching down anybody else's street but mine. The woman who couldn't get out of a Democratic caucus, a Democratic primary, I should say, and lost because she lost the confidence of her own people of Chicago. She's going to be the light bearer. She's going to be the one that is shining a light of transparency on what's going on in Dolton. This is, wow. If you're so incompetent and you're so corrupt that Lori Lightfoot says, whoa, wait a minute. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit too much. Here we go.
Had a simple question. What happened to all the money? The village tasked former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot to look into this, and tonight she finally delivered the summary of her investigation into possible mismanagement of funds by Mayor Tiffany Henyard. NBC5's Regina Waldrop was there as Lightfoot laid out how the village ended up being millions of dollars in the red.
Some more shocking details released about financial and legal matters. And now that the investigation is over, Lori Lightfoot says she hopes this small village can right the ship, get back to transparency and good government.
Good evening, everyone.
A packed Park District building, eager residents reacting to the results of a nearly 9-month investigation into the spending habits of Dolton's mayor and her administration.
I'm happy that the report is out so that the residents finally know some of the truth.
Still shocked because it's just amazing that this happened. And I think it saddens me also because the government didn't step in.
Former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot said she used witness testimony, emails, and other documents for her probe. With no subpoena power, she says she ran into some challenges, but still managed to get the job done. Henyard didn't attend the meeting.
We were tasked with looking into irregularities, allegations of irregularities regarding financial mismanagement.
Some of her key findings: credit card expenditures never approved, no receipts, more than $170,000 in travel-related costs, $51,000 spent at area restaurants, more
$51,000 in restaurants. Now, I'm a big guy. Let's face it. Ain't no way I could see someone spending that amount of money. Wolf of Wall Street, right? You know, he's $5,000 on sides. Well, I mean, what? This is 40,000 people. 51,000? You could have fed them all.
Yeah, you know who's been, speaking of like large food bills, you know who's been oddly silent in all of this? Governor Pritzker of the state of Illinois. You know, where is he and the state? Why is Lori Lightfoot investigating this? First of all, she's incompetent, right? We've mentioned it several times. And with no subpoena power. So nothing, what's going to happen to this mayor? A political consequence? That's it? For this outright corruption?
Well, she is currently under federal investigation and has been for months now. Now, there have been cases made against some of her allies in government. Some, it's widely believed, may have turned state's evidence on her. And the wheels of federal justice are grinding away very slowly.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, though, Gene, and I don't want to divert from the topic, but don't you find it a little odd that in all of these big government, police state, blue states and cities, it seems like it's only the federal government that ever detects crimes at the local level when it comes to corruption of local politicians? I mean, you could draw a parallel to New York City, right? The feds are looking at the mayor of New York City. Where is he, by the way? He's been sick for a while and out of the public eye. But why is the state police or New York City police or the state police of Illinois or the city police of Dolton looking into any of this, right? Why does it take the feds to detect this stuff? It's astonishing.
It's a great question, and I think maybe it is. I just realized we didn't put our names up there. It's maybe, dare I say, professional courtesy. I won't shake your apple tree if you don't shake mine. After all, we are talking about, like the People's Republic of New York, a one-party dominant state. We've discussed this on the channel before. The last governor to be elected out of office in the People's Republic of New York is Mario Cuomo from the early 90s. Everyone else has either resigned in disgrace, refused to run, or got taken down by scandal. So
Yeah.
I think it's a matter of it being a one-party area, but also I think it's a matter of I won't come to you and shake you about your problems because I got skeletons in the closet too. I strongly believe that's
that's partially it. But just across the river from where you live, in New Jersey, Bob Menendez just got 11 years in jail for the gold bars in his pocket. Right? He was a federal senator, so I get it. The federal government went after him. But these locals, I get it's one-party states, but the Democrats are supposedly, or were supposedly, the party of the rule of law, right? Between Joe Biden and these local electeds and governors, really. Like Pritzker thinks he can be president of the United States, right? Mayor Adams, once upon a time, I think, thought he could be president of the United States, right? So corrupt. It's painful.
I agree with you, and maybe it takes the federal government to oversee the state and locals because they're detached from the how would you call it, the social cliques of party politics in states and municipalities. I mean, everybody, just from our experience, everybody knows everybody, everybody's friends with everybody, and everybody benefits from everybody. So definitely food for thought there. Let's get back to this clip here with Mayor Lightfoot investigating what's going on in Dolton between the $170,000 in travel and the over $50,000 in food going out on their credit cards.
More than $218,000 for Amazon purchases and almost $50,000 in supplies for the village's skating rink.
What? Who's spending on Amazon?
I tried to tell you, bro, those eyelashes are expensive. You could buy them in bulk on Amazon. They're not cheap.
Good Lord.
There's no tracking system for what happened to them after they arrived here.
As for litigation, 48 separate lawsuits filed against the village, 12 for FOIA violations. And regarding Vegas, Lightfoot says no business opportunities came to the village as a result of 2 trips taken there. She also says the mayor's ex-assistant, who said she was assaulted by a trustee on a trip in 2023, didn't cooperate with her investigation, nor did any other key witnesses. As for the federal investigation, well, Lightfoot says she doubts anything will happen before next month's election. She also touched on the new administration.
I'm not really worried about the new administration. I don't think that they seem to be doing lots across the country and not really focus on the village of Dolton. I don't believe that the federal investigation should be impacted, but there's really no way of telling it.
And how the hell would she know? What inside track does Lori Lightfoot have on the ongoing federal investigation? And she's saying that nobody else is going to be acting badly here. Why is she so self-assured of that, pal?
On a serious note, and black women, listen to me. Please listen. You guys keep voting for Democrats. Right? There's no doubt that this mayor will be replaced by another Democrat. There's no doubt. It's a one-party. Look at the crowd there, right? Are we supposed to not acknowledge that more than 75% of the people in that crowd are women, and probably 90% of those women were black, right? They vote Democratic. The numbers prove it on the national level. 95% for Kamala Harris or whatever black women were doing, while black males were slightly less than that, right? So there's some hope there in that demographic. But black women, the mere fact that you're comfortable with Lori Lightfoot conducting an investigation and giving you results just proves to me that you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to elect another Democrat, probably based on skin color, and you're going to get the same results. Wake the F up.
So, by the way, I'm checking the census stats for Dolton, Illinois. I was wrong. It's not 40,000. It's like more like 20,000. Race and origin. black alone, 90.9% for the village of Dolton. The next biggest demographic is mixed race, 2.9%, Hispanic, 1.2%, white alone, 4.9%, and white alone, not Hispanic or Latino, is more like 4.4%. Just to give you an idea of the breakdown of the area.
Yeah, and is there a Republican candidate going to run?
Yeah, right.
No, right? So that's all that needs to be said. You know, in a one-party system, and I've said this for years, especially when I was out campaigning, Donald Trump like kind of stole it when he's like, what do you have to lose? Right? No one has to compete for the black female vote, right? Democrats don't have to go after it. They got it. Republicans will never waste money going after it because they know they can't get it. Now, Donald Trump rolled the dice and tried to expand the base with other minority groups, and he was somewhat successful, right? Especially with Hispanics and Asians, and somewhat with blacks compared to other Republicans, black males, I should say. But black females, like, you're going to keep getting shitty government if you keep voting based on race and gender. Like, that's just it. Wake up.
So after all of this, the Lightfoot report, there was a new board member that used to be an employee that was anti-Henyard that was elected into a vacant position. And the lawsuit that ended up losing, so that now she can only be mayor of Dolton going forward and have a split between the mayor of the village and the supervisor of the town. And that's going to work out so great. Amidst all this tension, there was a meeting, I believe it was of Thornton Township, where this happened. And we're going to continue on here with NBC Chicago.
Township looked like it was ready to get back to business tonight after a recent government shutdown, but then a brawl broke out.
Yes, this happened during the first board meeting with a new board member. NBC5's Regina Waldrop with the very latest.
First of all, shout out to Regina for covering all this nonsense, but you know, so casually, these anchor people are just like, yeah, a brawl broke out, as you do at different, governmental functions and such. Really?
Yeah, and high school basketball games and high school football games and NFL games in the stands. America's a mess.
Well, let's see what Regina has to say about this latest news. And then I have some things to add into it that maybe she didn't mention or you need a little inside baseball to know.
This was a heated meeting from the beginning with Tiffany Henyard's boyfriend put on administrative leave. But when someone in the audience called her a name, that's when things got out of control.
You gone.
This happened.
The word that was left out of that was the B word. So this was during public session at the this meeting. This guy basically went on a rant, and at the end he said, "You gone, bitch," and that's what was cut out. So, and this was and she also referenced the boyfriend, which is going to be mentioned here as well. So let's get back to it.
Right after a community activist called Tiffany Henyard an expletive, a fight erupting in the back of the room. Fists, kicks, people jumping on top of tables, monitors smashed, with Henyard and her boyfriend in the middle of the melee.
Everything, it was scary, it was horrible. That's an embarrassment.
It should have never come to blows, and Tiffany should have never got involved.
It was the public comment portion of Tuesday's Thornton Township board meeting. Earlier in the evening, the room erupted with applause.
To put Kamal Woods and William Moore on administrative leave.
When the board came back from closed session with the announcement that Henyard's boyfriend, Kamal Woods, who runs the township's at-risk youth program, and William Moore, another employee, would both be put on paid administrative leave immediately.
I don't understand why they're on leave with pay, because essentially nothing changes for them, because they've been doing the same thing.
The board also approved an independent investigator and/or forensic auditor to look into the use of certain grant money and possible township funds related to the at-risk youth program and the outreach department. Henyard called it political retaliation. She's threatening a lawsuit.
Oh, I'm so happy. Y'all, thank y'all. Thank y'all for the lawsuit. But anyway.
My God. First of all, the very natural looking hairstyle there. This is the same boyfriend that I believe lives with Tiffany Henyard, who both of them earn, six figures from different governmental jobs, and their landlord is trying to evict them for not paying rent. This just casually throwing that out there. By the way, they make some reference to this, I think, later on, but as part of this brawl, Henyard got off of the dais, the table there, and went towards the brawl. And according to local news reports, lost her wig and a single shoe while jumping into the fight.
Bro, look at my man's face next to her, bro. That poor guy. What is he doing there? Move, dude. Why are you in Dolton?
There are some true believers out there maybe that think they can make a difference, or maybe they don't want to be. But you know what? Okay, let's get cynical. Maybe this guy doesn't want to move because him moving may signal something to the feds that he needs to be investigated.
I don't know.
Who the heck knows? Anyway, let's tie this up with a bow because we got some more stuff to do.
It is a motion. It is a motion. You know it.
Police were here all the time, and they did escort a large group outside, but it's unclear right now if anyone was taken into custody or arrested. Reporting from South Holland, I'm Regina Waldrop.
Great job,
Regina. Move away from there.
Well, I think Regina works in Chicago and has to come down here and commute to this madness here. Oh my God! What a way to run a government. What the hell, man?
So we found a place worse than the People's Republic of New York City, possibly.
Calm down. Calm down with that. So listen, gang, if you guys want to know more about the trials and tribulations of Dolton, Illinois, and Thornton Township and Tiffany Henyard, I highly recommend you can go to Nate the Lawyer. He runs a great channel where he has a whole playlist of what's been going on for years there. Also, Actual Justice Warrior has been doing the same thing and covering Tiffany Henyard, the super mayor, as she calls herself. And this is just sort of the logical progression, pal, of what one party rule would do to an area. And it breaks down to chaos.
But I bet you they don't have congestion pricing.
Picking scabs, Galloway, picking scabs. Well, listen, we're sort of at halftime here on the show. We got a lot of good show left for you to deal with here and to enjoy. And I want to thank you guys so much for coming and watching the show with us. I'm Gene, he's Ross. We are behind enemy lines. I'm glad you're here. You can always check out the latest with our show and the channel at buffoonoftheweek.com. You can also pick up some great merch at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. We have t-shirts. We have all kinds of memorabilia for this show, for other shows. If you're tired of government, you're tired of buffoons, there's something there for you for sure. Check it all out. And you can also check out the articles at buffoonoftheweek.com. I recently wrote one about Jim Acosta leaving CNN, which I thought was pretty darn good, if I do say so myself. I know you read it, pal.
I was going to, if you didn't plug it, I was going to. It was snarky, funny, and brought back a lot of good memories. It was a great article.
I appreciate that, pal. There's so much to talk about that I'm actually going to cut short all of the plugs and grift and all of that. I'm not going to talk about the book, or maybe I'll talk about the book later. So let's get to some federal news. We know that since Donald Trump took office on the 20th, one of his first priorities has been the deportation of illegal immigrants with criminal histories. And Tom Homan, the director of what he's doing with ICE, he's been kind of kicking ass at this job. I saw a stat that there's been a couple of thousand different illegal immigrants with criminal histories that have been identified, apprehended, and many sent out of the country.
Yeah, I mean, under his oversight, I guess you could say, or his leadership, deportations have been averaging roughly 1,000 a day. And when he was asked about it, he said that's not enough. And I agree with him, because if you maintain 1,000 a day, that's 300,000 a year times 4 years. Hopefully, it's a little over 1 million. There's probably 20 million illegals here. So yeah, he's doing a great job there. And he also reported great news on the border itself, right? You have to stop the bleeding first before you can deal with the people in the interior. We're doing both at the same time because of the situation that the Biden administration left us in. But they reported that from a certain sector in Texas, at a high point, there were 4,000 encounters a day in the El Paso sector a day on the high water mark of the Biden administration. As of yesterday, there were 60. 4,000 down to 60, right? So the border is just about effectively shut, and we're going to tighten that up with some border wall, so we don't have to keep the Marines and the U.S. Army down there for the entire duration of the Trump presidency. but we got to get the physical barrier set up. Then we can start withdrawing some troops, and we're going to be using the military like we already are to physically deport these people out of the country. One more thing on the border, Gene. Tom Homan, he promised this. Donald Trump promised this. The Remain in Mexico policy. And it's actually better than I even thought. It's not like you have you fill out some paperwork and then you go back into Mexico. They're just authorized to pick them up, 1, 2, throw them right back into Mexico, right? And go fill out your paperwork there. There's no more app to come in the country. There's no more coming in and catch and release, and you wait for a court date here. You get stopped at the border. Border Patrol throws you back over the border into Mexico. Try again.
Well, this new shown strength from the Trump administration when it comes to the border and it comes to illegal immigration has also been met with aggression towards America as well. We saw, we believe that the cartels were shooting across the fence line on the border towards Border Patrol agents on the other side. We saw the president of Colombia try to push back against the return of Colombian illegal immigrants, and they postured a little bit. And then once Trump said, okay, you want to do that, we'll play that game, I'm going to put tariffs on everything that's coming into us, they backed down and collapsed like a flan in a cupboard, basically. So we've seen this projection of strength being met with challenges outside the country, but also now inside the country. Tom Homan was on Fox News and with Jesse Waters, and Waters played a clip from MSDNC and Joy Reid, who is just an amazing buffoon. I'm going to be nice. Interviewing another amazing buffoon, Tish James, the Attorney General of the People's Republic of New York, and Homan was asked to comment on this clip. Let's take a look. This is going to be fun.
James, AG here in New York, says it's all a game you're playing. Listen to this.
New York City joined the list of cities where these performative raids are taking place.
We have a government right now that is reckless.
Reckless and also, I mean, as I've said, performative. I mean, I want to show you an image of Kristi Noem, who was just confirmed, the former governor who was confirmed as Department of Homeland Security. I mean, it's as she's cosplaying. It's almost a game where she seems to be cosplaying, because I'm not sure what she thinks that she's portraying here. She might as well be at Comic-Con.
So that's the statement from Joy Reid. It's all performative, it's cosplaying, it's for show and all that. Meanwhile, we just outlined how it's been getting results, and Tom Homan has one of the best comments I've ever seen on cable news.
James and Joy say you're reckless and you're just role-playing for fun.
She's dumber than a box of rocks. Bottom line is, let's talk about Chicago for a minute.
Dumber than a box of rocks.
Brilliant.
That's an insult to rocks, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, let's just go back to the cosplay thing for 1 second, Gene. So, Kristi Noem is the Secretary of Homeland Security, right? DHS, Department of Homeland Security. She oversees multiple federal law enforcement agencies. She's going out in her first couple of weeks on raids with her agents, right? Do you think she has like bulletproof vests laying around in her closet? No, she's going on a raid. I'm sure ICE or any agency would have given her some personal protective equipment while she's out on a live raid. This is not training. This is not an exercise. This is live. Right? Every time you see a newsman or woman overseas, they're wearing some kind of flak vest, right? That says press on it, right? So I don't see where the cosplay is. She wasn't wearing a gun or a badge. She was wearing a vest, a protective vest.
And by the way, this performative raid happening in the People's Republic of New York City, what did it yield? One of the leaders of the Tren de Aragua gang? I don't know how to pronounce it, but you know that gang. The gang that took over all the, the buildings in Colorado, in Aurora, Colorado.
Only one, Gene. It was only one.
It was only one bill. Yes. Thank you, Vice President J.D. Vance, for that with Martha Raddatz. But yeah, they found the guy in New York. I mean, you want to talk about a high-value target in the first 10 days of the Trump administration? Joe Biden and his administration allowed, apartment buildings to be taken over in America by an international gang, and within 10 days, Trump's Homeland Security found the guy.
Yep. And what I love about I love so much what's going on, Gene. Like my only regret really is we're like, 10 days into this administration. So we have 10 days less than 4 years left of this, right? It hurts to even think that this countdown clock has started. But what I love so far is this all of government approach. Like the Trump administration this time around is much better prepared. All of the people in charge right now, the ones that have been confirmed, as well as the acting leadership. Because right now, a lot of the political appointees that need Senate confirmation are not in place, but they put the proper people in acting roles for an all-of-government approach, and they are actually force multipliers, right? Like having a guy like Tom Homan and Kristi Noem out there, this thing is like on autopilot now. And they're working not only interagency within DHS, now they have Pete Hegseth over at DOD. So it's an all-of-government approach. Did you hear Trump just announced this today? New executive order. He ordered the DOD to start prepping Guantanamo Bay to hold up to 30,000 illegal immigrants. That's for the Colombians and the Venezuelans who their country may or may not take them back, and we got to hold on to them for a little while. Instead of releasing them back into the interior of the United States to destroy our inner cities, we can put them at Guantanamo Bay on a cot and feed them and house them in, a relatively comfortable large tent until their governments take them back.
And I believe he did that in the context of removing the temporary protective status for many Venezuelan immigrants as well. Let's go back to what Homan said after calling Joy Reid dumber than a box of rocks, which again, insult to rocks.
Chicago mayor says that we put fear in the elementary schools because ICE agents went to elementary school. Total false story. What ICE did in Chicago is save children. What we did in New York today is save children. Just Chicago alone, we arrested like 9 sexual predators, most of them child sex predators. We took them off the street. We took them off the street in New York today. We're protecting the community. We're saving children. We're going to secure that border so less Americans die of fentanyl deaths. We're securing the border so less women and children are sex trafficked. Biden administration had a 600% increase in sex trafficking. We're securing the border so less terrorists and people on the terrorist watch lists get into the country. Biden, under Biden, we had a 3,500% increase in people on the terrorist watch list. No.
Did you catch that? Under Biden, a 3,500% increase of illegal immigrants coming into the country on the terror watch list. That's astounding.
Completely astounding, Gene, especially when they make contact with a lot of these people. Right? The gotaways are the people that they saw on a camera, they know they snuck across the border, and we don't know who that person is. The fact that we know people came here that were on a terrorist watch list means that they've come into contact with United States law enforcement, whether it be at the federal level or possibly at a local level, and nothing happened to them, right? If you're here illegally and you're on a terror watch list, why are you here? How can that even be?
And if those are the only ones that we had contact with, imagine how many as a force multiplier we didn't have contact with. You mentioned the idea of a whole government approach to this. It also reminded me that during RFK Jr.'s confirmation hearings, one of the things that he's going to be tasked with is locating all these got-away minors to see where they are as well. That's going to be part of his approach to this as well, just to further emphasize your idea of this all-government approach from multiple agencies and departments.
I think it's worth mentioning here, speaking of those migrant children that are lost, right? The Biden administration lost 300,000 of them. I think they located about 80,000 of them so far. How evil this really was. People sneak across our border, and they're sneaking across our border from every country on the planet now. It used to be 90% Mexicans, 10% other than Mexicans, OTMs. Now the numbers are skewed. It's a lot of people from other S-hole countries, right? That we don't know who they are. There's no way to vet them. And they come across with children, or children are coming across alone. We don't know if that child really belongs to that adult. There is no way to vet that. So our law enforcement on the border under the Biden administration takes their word for it. That's what they're talking about partially when they talk about family separation. You show up to the border with a kid. I don't know if this kid is yours. we might have to separate you for a while. Number one, you're breaking immigration law, right? That's number one. Number two, I have no idea if this child is yours or if you're trafficking this child or kidnapped this child. I can't believe the Biden administration allowed that to happen. Thank God Trump is stopping it. One more point, Gene.
Yeah.
If you notice, you played Joy Reid, right? So MSNBC has a problem with what Holman and the Trump administration is doing. CNN, they talk about it a little bit, and your major news networks, they have some issues with this. What I will point out is you will not see any mainstream Democrat, no matter how radical they are, except maybe AOC, complaining about this, right? Most of the governors and mayors are even stepping back from this, saying, because how can you argue that taking child rapists off the street and putting them into ICE custody for deportation is wrong? Even Democratic mayors can't bring themselves to say that. We're turning a corner here.
I'm going to push back just a second because you mentioned CNN. CNN's Jake Tapper did an interview with Stephen Miller recently. He's now like an assistant chief of staff for policy in the White House itself. Jake Tapper is pushing the same narrative that we're seeing Democrats all over push. And that is that these immigrants are just poor people looking for work. They're going to, your food prices are going to go up because there's going to be nobody in the fields doing the manual labor to harvest all the food, and food prices are therefore going to go up. Pushing this narrative that, these poor people, we need them to basically be indentured servants to work these menial jobs that no American would ever lower themselves to do. And Stephen Miller pushes back on this because the current narrative from Democrats are now, well, we're not seeing food prices go down at this point because you're cracking down on all these immigrants and they're not showing up to work in California and they're not showing to work in these other places. So let's watch this now from Jake Tapper talking about the poor immigrants who have to work the fields that we all take for granted that we need to keep our society going.
One of the reasons that President Trump got elected, according to President Trump in an interview, I think it was with Kristen Welker of NBC, was because of grocery prices. Not the only reason, but a reason, high prices, inflation, especially at the grocery. The Department of Agriculture says that between 2020 and 2022, 42% of crop workers were undocumented immigrants. And in many cases, as you know, these migrants do jobs many Americans do not want to do. So,
forgetting the fact that a vast majority of these migrants don't necessarily go to these rural areas. They go to New York and Chicago and Los Angeles and other big cities where they can just get lost in the millions and work off the books in different places, not necessarily picking in the fields. Where does this narrative come from?
Even with the narrative, there's a guest worker program specifically to address that problem, right? Where they allow migrants to come in, work a certain amount of months, and then go back home, right? That's already been addressed. I know this clip is actually great, so I don't want to stall this too long, but going back to what I said, yeah, Jake Tapper is mentioning on the macro about mass deportations, but he's not pointing to the raids that are currently happening. No one can. They can't justify what they've done. There's no way anyone could be against a rapist or a murderer being arrested in an inner city to be deported that's here illegally. No one can do it. I haven't seen anyone credibly do it yet. They all talk about these fantasies about crops and other things and schools and other nonsense.
All right, let's get back to the clip.
How does President Trump make sure that the effort to deport people who are not in this country legally doesn't end up hurting Americans who want safe borders, absolutely, but also don't want to see even more higher prices in groceries?
Well, I mean, I'm sure it's not your position, Jake, you're just asking the question, that we should supply America's food with exploitative illegal alien labor.
There we go. Start using their own terms against them. We don't want to exploit these poor people coming to our shores. Of course not. And all of a sudden, Jake Tapper knows he's stepped in it. You can tell by the look on his face.
Yeah, and just before you go, like you notice this is CNN, by the way. We got to send our all-stars like Stephen Miller, J.D. Vance, Vivek Ramaswamy to these lions' dens because they do not accept the premise of these idiotic questions. We played a Republican, Congressman Burchan, the other day, who falls into these traps and addresses the premise. Is that Jake Tapper's premise? Like, attack him. Make him look like the fool that he is. He's stunned. He don't know what to say to that. That's why he doesn't interrupt him now.
Oh, yeah. Trump has a lot of people that are able to think on their feet in these live moments that maybe a sitting congressman can't do. So let's watch Stephen Miller cook.
I obviously don't think that's what you're implying. Only 1% of alien workers in the entire country work in agriculture. The top destination for illegal aliens are large cities like New York, like Los Angeles, and small industrial towns, of course, all across the heartland, as we've seen with the Biden flights. Mm-hmm. None of those illegal aliens are doing farm work. Those 30,000 illegal aliens that Joe Biden dumped into Springfield.
I'm talking about the ones that are.
But I'm explaining this. It's important to understand.
No, you're kind of changing the subject. I mean, I'm talking about the ones.
I will give me 30 minutes. I'll go as deep as you want on this.
We don't have 30
minutes.
Audience. I don't have a 30. I'm talking about the ones that work in the agriculture industry.
I'm
you can come back and we can talk about the ones in the cities. I swear.
I'll do the whole answer. The illegal aliens that Joe Biden brought into our country are not full stop doing farm work. They are not. The illegal aliens he brought in from Venezuela, from Haiti, from Nicaragua, they are not doing farm work. They are in our cities collecting welfare. As for the farmers, there is a guest worker program that President Trump supports. Over time as well, we will transition into automation, so we'll never have to have this conversation ever again. But there's no universe in which this nation is going to allow the previous president to flood our nation with millions and millions of illegal aliens who just get to stay here. And we are especially not going to allow a subset of those illegal aliens to rape and murder our citizens. So we are going to unapologetically enforce our immigration laws. And as I'm sure you will celebrate, we are going to unleash the power and might of the U.S. government to eradicate the presence of transnational threats on our soil.
I have no critique. 10 out of 10.
Yeah, 10 out of 10. Speaking of 10, the 10 people that are watching CNN, what do they have to say about that? How do you disagree with that?
You can't. It just shows that, and I saw this online on my own timeline recently as well. The Democrats are resorting to shading stories and telling half-truths. Like, for example, the executive order that came out that was looking to stop aid programs and put a pause on them pending investigation of different things, where the Trump administration said that direct benefits to the people, like Medicaid, like SNAP, and things like that, would not be affected. I saw a New York City member of the city council putting out half-truths on this, and I had to call him out on that. It brought down holy hail on my timeline from all his supporters, but every single one of them were completely ignorant, relying on what was being said by the Democrat talking head, and then just turning off their brains, not doing their own independent research, not having the natural curiosity to look at what's going on actually without the partisan blinders on. That's what they're relying on. It's back to the old dirty tricks of shading truths and not giving everybody the full story without proper context.
100%. I'll give you two quick examples, one of which you just spoke about, the grants, right? That executive order, by the way, it's still in effect. OMB pulled back their memo, which was the memo underneath the president's executive order. The executive order is still in effect. The president of the United States gave an executive order to the executive branch to pause all discretionary grant spending. Discretionary. Congress appropriates funds. If they earmark it for something specific, the president supposedly can't stop it, right? There's a whole issue with impoundment. That's going to want to go to the Supreme Court. Russell Vogt from OMB doesn't think that that's constitutional, but that's the current law of the land. However, if the Department of Homeland Security gets $1 billion in discretionary funds to give it to the states as it sees fit, then the chief executive, the president of the United States, can absolutely tell the DHS or any other department under him to not issue any of those funds pending further review. 100% legal.
And by the way, here is that memo from OMB in furtherance of the executive order that Trump has since rescinded. if we go down to the bottom here, in the footnote on the first page, 2 CFR 200.1 defines federal financial assistance to mean assistance that recipients or subrecipients receive or administer in various forms. But this term does not include assistance provided directly to individuals. What does that mean? Medicaid wasn't cut off. Medicare wasn't cut off. SNAP wasn't cut off. Other assistance coming from the federal government, not cut off. They willfully stick their head in the sand and they tell you that the world is coming to an end and that the sky is falling. That's what they do. And it's so frustrating that here we are 9 days into the administration. And that's what they've ramped up these tactics over and over and over again.
Gene, they are hysterical and they're lying about everything, like you said, and exaggerating and telling half truths. Just real quick, because he mentioned agriculture and food prices. The Democrats think they got Trump on these food prices. The guy's been in office for a week and a half, right? Put that aside for a second. The talking point, and you know the Democrats send their talking points to not only the Democrats, but to the media, right? The media goes verbatim from what the Democrat talking points are. The talking point this week is the price of eggs. Every story and every politician you will hear speak is talking about the price of eggs. What they leave out is that during the fake bird flu scare a few months ago, President Biden ordered over 100 million chickens to be killed, to be slaughtered. 100 million chickens. What will that do to the price of chicken, eggs, and other animals that they grind chicken parts up to feed? It's going to go up. They caused this price increase. Give it a couple of months. Those chickens are coming back. That bird flu thing was a fake, and the prices are going to go down. Come on.
So, you're saying the chickens will come home to roost?
The chickens will come home to roost.
There you go. There's a proper way to end that segment right there. All right, my friend. It's that time again. Final thoughts. I'm going to go first this time because honestly, I wrote my final thought. I put it on buffoonoftheweek.com. It's there for everybody to see. Let me see if I can put this up on the screen here. If I can talk and work at the same time. Share screen. Here it is. Okay. I'm going to put this up for everyone to see. From buffoonoftheweek.com, Acosta out at CNN, Requiem for a Hack. I went back into my research of buffoonish hacks throughout history and how artists and journalism and media in general, just all media in general, would always sell out to money. It just was always that way, going from the time of Alexander Pope to the 24/7 news cycle that we have right now. What we see now with Jim Acosta exiting CNN and going into Substack is another form of the world healing, certainly. As you pointed out in our conversations together, I called it the end of an error, not an era, error. And look back a little bit at Jim Acosta being the tip of the media spear during the first Trump administration and how he fixated on Donald Trump and became almost obsessed with it. And I put the quotes in I talked about last week in the article about how Jim Acosta is a throwback to yellow journalism. So when we say someone's a throwback, we normally think it's a good thing, but not in a good way this time. We're talking about the era of yellow journalism, or the journalism of action and the creation of their own aesthetic fallacies and beautiful stories, and how Jim Acosta became the story rather than reporting the story, became more worried about his own haircut than he did his reporting and the veracity of it. And it's an example, pal, of what you've said already when we talk about immigration, how the world has moved on from the first Trump term. The world has moved on to almost retreat and allow Trump to have his moment, like you said, with the immigration policies, but also giving him more the benefit of the doubt, because the poll numbers have shown that Donald Trump has the benefit of the doubt with the voter. So it seems like that CNN and I think his name is Mark Thompson, who's the new chief executive there, they recognize that Acosta shouldn't rise again with the reemergence of Trump. And instead of taking an overnight slot where he could have actually built himself a following, he's gone now to Substack. And I don't think that Jim Acosta can survive the marketplace of ideas that is Substack or social media without the full faith and credit of CNN. So effectively, Jim Acosta, I'm going to say farewell for now, and we'll probably see you on News Nation sometime real soon.
Someday we got to do a comprehensive list of all of the politicians, political dynasties, and media figures that Donald Trump has slayed over the years.
Oh, God. Well, let's okay. Just off the top of my head, Jim Acosta, Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo, Michael Avenatti,
Chris Wallace.
Chris Wallace.
What's the woman with the first debate in 2016? Megyn Kelly's
reemerged.
She's reemerged. She's back, but destroyed her.
You can add Nora O'Donnell to that list, who
Nora
just left
O'Donnell,
PBS.
Martha Raddatz.
Martha Raddatz. My goodness. And then the older
The Clintons, the Bidens,
Keith Olbermann, Dan Rather,
the Bushes, the Cheneys.
Please clap.
Unbelievable.
What a list. And it's long, glorious, and we can do a whole show on it one day, maybe. All right, pal, you get the last word tonight.
Mine's quick, man. Thank God. Thank you for the Thank you to the Democrats. Thank you for stealing the 2020 election. I can't thank you enough. Donald Trump is so much better prepared and positioned this time around. That 4-year break, huge favor. He's got force multipliers in key positions with more backup on the way coming through the confirmation process. This is the most unified I've seen the Republican Party in my lifetime. And we have a president who was persecuted and nearly killed and is full of vengeance. We're taking it all back, and there's not a fucking thing you can do about it. That's my last word.
Remember how we used to always say, can we let Trump be Trump?
Oh, he's being Trump, all right.
We now see Trump unchained. We're letting Trump be Trump, and heading
to quote
into
Kamala, no guardrails.
And coming into day 10, there's a lot to be had. We haven't even talked about the signing of the passage of the Laken Riley Act. We haven't even talked about, the accomplishments overseas where Trump has European countries in NATO saying, yeah, we should pay our own fair share. There's so much else. We didn't even talk about his trip to California. And showing up Karen Bass.
Unbelievable.
There's so much winning to talk about that we might have to expand our show to 90 minutes from now on.
And just imagine when he gets full steam with all of his nominees in place.
We may have to do a 90-minute show from that point on, pal. Well, listen, another great show. Kudos on the show prep this time around. You done good, buddy boy. Thanks so much to everybody tuning in. As always, check out buffoonoftheweek.com. Check out our merch at shop.buffoonoftheweek.com. Like, share the show with your friends, subscribe to the channel, all that really, really good stuff. And until next week, folks, we're going to shut things down by belting out that motherfucking anthem. Thanks so much for tuning in. Good night. Have a great week.
We're not allowed, not without electoral.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
Teeth, don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows, flag on my chest, repping my clan, putting faith to the test. Cause left plays blue behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw, cool in the chaos, but loud in the war. But loud in the war. Thunder, arm in advance, march to the anthem, this is our chance. If I ever stand with a smirk in a gaze, holding down the fort in this Democrat